Out of three so far. So let me just introduce uh, the the folks we've got here to help me out with all of this. Start off with Dr. Nick Vanderheyden. He is a clinical specialist with Iodine Software. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are.
Exactly. And also we have Stephen LeBeuf, who is the president and co-founder of Valencell, which is a company that's done a lot of very exciting things with biometric data out of wearable devices. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for
Thanks for
having
your
us.
time. Pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you. So let's start off with LeBeuf. I'd like to start with you. So, remote patient monitoring. How do you define that? What do you see as the boundaries for that?
Well, I feel that, if you take it at its vernacular definition, there's remote, patient, and monitoring. So there's three things combined. So that's pretty broad. So, you're not really at the doctor's office. You're away from where the data is being processed or analyzed, for example. You are a patient. So the assumption is this is in conjunction with some kind of medical care or healthcare somehow. And of course, there's the monitoring side. So something is being monitored, right? And when remote patient monitoring was first conceived, it was the first time I became aware of this topic being explored in a commercial way, in any consortium way. Was I want to say it was called, and I don't know if this organization is still in existence. It was called the Continua Alliance, and it was in the early 2000s. People started conceiving of, and companies conceiving of, how do you get traditional monitoring devices, like, say, for example, blood pressure cuffs, or maybe pulse oximeters, or maybe ECG devices at home, and get that data to the physician somehow in some common platform. Of course, today now, remote patient monitoring is so much broader with the advent of biometric wearables.
Excellent. So Dr. Dick, the pandemic obviously lit a fire under all this. How do you see how the COVID pandemic accelerated, changed, altered the trajectory for remote patient monitoring as a healthcare device?
Yeah, no, I think the pandemic lit a fire under a bunch of things, and this is just one of them. Remote patient monitoring was one of the elements, I think, in combination with telehealth, which, for everybody that was in the industry, what were we saying? Well, I can tell you 20 years ago, I was saying telehealth is 2 years away, and it has been for the last 20 years. And it continued to be right up to the point that we hit the pandemic, and suddenly everybody goes, oh my God, this telehealth stuff actually works. We'll use it, because there was no choice, no problem. At the point that we added that, we obviously had a major gap. One of the challenges of doing anything in this interaction, this, as I call it, four-dimensional, because time is always
Oh,
important.
I got another dimension to think about.
I had to bring it in. There's four. Actually, there's another 32, but that's a whole different story. So, how do you interact? So, there's fantastic engagement with a patient in this sort of setting. There are some technical challenges. I think we've sort of, started to smooth out some of that, but I'm missing data. I've got no capacity to lay hands on the patient, actually grab information that, for me as a physician is essential. What am I thinking about? Well, at a minimum, I want to have the pulse, respiration rate. I want to have blood pressure if I can have it. There's a bunch of things. And we've seen capabilities that add that. But what we've seen is even more. And I continue to sort of, I'm hopeful that we can move much of it into this remote setting. I differ from Stephen just a little bit in terms of the
Oh, just a
patient,
little bit,
just a little bit. It just
because our accents are
in
identical.
terms of the patient terminology, because I think this is more than the patient; it's the consumer, and we can certainly talk about that. But the capacity to take um, all of this information and then feed that in. You could almost imagine it as the